Hello and welcome to Automation Nation, our new show covering all the issues and news you need to know for anyone working in the RPA, intelligent automation, or enterprise AI space. And this is our sales strategy edition, a series especially focused on helping sales leaders who are selling into these spaces. I'm Dan Goodstein. I head up IRPA AI, the Institute for Robotic Process Automation and Artificial Intelligence. And I'm joined today by the great Frank Casale, RPA industry pioneer and the founder of IRPA AI. Frank, welcome.
Dan, always a pleasure. I'm looking forward to this session on this new platform and having some fun, hopefully providing some value to those who view this. We shall see.
We shall see, but I think so. You know, we have these conversations all the time, just you and I over a bite or over a drink, and thought it'd be good to maybe start doing them live. Hopefully, get some value to members and an inside look as to what's happening in the world, at least as we see it at the center of this large network. We're up to 130,000 global executives now. So, as we tell people, Frank, we typically either know the answer or know somebody who does have the answer, and it's helpful to be at the center of this network. Frank, we're in this kind of spot where we're nearing the end of the year. Lots of organizations are in planning mode for 2023, but it's a tricky time too, right? It's this sort of post-pandemic era. Companies' cash flows are hurting. There's layoffs, inflation, concerns over recession, and we're still largely in a virtual society, which for all the old school salespeople out there makes it harder to sell, right? So, first of all, what's your kind of general thoughts on the environment as you see it?
Well, Dan, before I answer your question, I want to two things. One is I want to thank you, give kudos to you for doing such a great job getting the content out. I used to for years bump into people and they would talk to me about me. Now when I bump into them, they ask me about you. So I'm starting to feel like just the middleman, Dan. But seriously, great. I appreciate, and thousands of people appreciate what you're doing. The second comment is we've never discussed these topics over food, only over drinks. You said food and drinks.
So
it's important to be accurate on these things. There's very important people watching these. So on a serious note, well, you have several things that could be taken as helping, moving transactions forward, or hurting. You have your end, could be good or could be bad, right? If you're in the business, as many of the people in the network are, right? You have people, kind of this resurgence, if you will, of business activity. I would say not getting back to normal, but moving in that direction, which could be good or could be bad. But there's still a lot unsettled as far as who's working from home, who's getting in the office, all that jazz. You have, depending on which economist you speak to, we have either this imminent recession or we're just right into it. Either way, you have people concerned about spend. I remain optimistic from the standpoint that I see mechanisms and technologies such as automation, I'll just use that term broadly for the sake of this discussion, as recession-proof and as kind of challenge-proof. Meaning, if you're struggling and you're looking to kind of manage cost and if it's more kind of economics focused, then of course you could have that conversation. If your labor costs are through the roof and you want to reduce that, you could have that conversation. If you are like many people are now, which you have actually more jobs than people in those jobs, so you have kind of a gap, and you need what I call digital staff hog. Here we are. We got the silver bullet. So I remain optimistic, and for those of you in the deal business, I think you have no choice, right? Just find people who are looking for a solution right now. And there are many, many out there. I speak to them every day.
So, we both do, and you've been in recent years, especially been helping organizations from a sales and deal pursuits standpoint. What's your assessment? What are the top 5 most common reasons why automation sales teams in particular are struggling and losing deals, Frank?
Yes. So I have notes here, Dan. You say I never prepare. I have notes here, Dan.
I'm worried.
I know you don't like when I prepare, but on the top it says, these are the top 5 reasons why sales teams lose deals, why they lose deals. And this is so part of what I'm about to share with you is based on my experience. So my opinion and how I see it, having done many deals over the years, and also having been privy to other deals, either on the perimeter as an advisor or a friend or a coach on either or all sides of this. So part of what I'm about to share with you is kind of how I see it. Part of it I would go as far as saying is just kind of fact. It's just kind of the way it is. So let's see. So shall I start? Shall we get into it? You ready, Dan?
Do it.
You
Go.
ready? Okay. All righty, fine. So the first one I have here, this is sort of in order, but maybe not necessarily so. So mistake number one is, and I'm going to get a bunch of people mad at me here. And mistake number one is starting with IT. I don't think as a deal team you should start with IT because at the end of the day, the ultimate driver tends to be some sort of a business challenge or a business opportunity. And at the end of the day, the person most likely signing or approving or at least validating what the business case is going to be some sort of a business executive, a decision maker. So now I am a realist, and I know that some deals, somebody picks up the phone and calls you, or you bump into somebody that heads up IT at a conference and they're interested. However, I would tell you from experience, my personal experience and seeing and having access to a good amount of data out there and intel is that deals whereby the initial discussion, the bulk of discussion are with business leadership close at twice, sometimes three times the rate of deals where the anchor, the center of gravity is with IT. Now, I think, Dan, you wanted me to keep it high level for each of these, and then subsequently on other discussions, on other maybe interviews or roundtables, we could go into
deeper
dive. So I'll do my best to kind of, what's the old expression? Inch deep and a mile wide here, but I would caution against initiating a dialogue and getting too cozy solely with IT. For all my friends and yours that are CTOs and CIOs and technology leads, of course, you folks are super, super important. But at the end of the day, if I'm leading the deal, I want to make sure the head of business, could be process owner, could be P&L owner, could be the CEO, could be a lead investor, but somebody that's driving it from a business standpoint, I want to make sure they're there, significantly increases the odds. So mistake number one is anchoring in IT. Oh boy, I'm starting in a bad place, but let's see. Should I go number two?
Yeah, well, what's next? So if you think of that, what's that list, Frank? And then
Okay.
I want to invite people to kind of let us know, what they're struggling with, which of them are kind of top of their list, and in the subsequent sessions we can go deeper. We're also going to do some kind of live Q&A office hour sessions over the next coming weeks,
Okay.
so people can get their questions answered live. But yeah, give us the list.
Anything for you, Dan. So number two, I see many people mistaking interest for qualification, meaning interest in the product. Just because they're interested in the product, just because they really enjoyed the demo, and just because they really seem interested and asked a lot of questions, they were engaged in the demo, does not mean at all they are qualified. That just means that they are interested in the demo. And so you need to be careful. I've just seen so many people whereby they finish a demo, a couple of people on that call, and they say, this is awesome. That does not qualify them. It's great. It's certainly better than if they don't like the product or they are underwhelmed with the demo. I've been in one or two of those as well. But the key is not to anchor on that expression of joy at that point. It's to qualify. And we could do a separate session if you like, Dan, on qualification. But I think the key is to not show up and throw up and not talk all about the product all day long, and to really start with a business discussion. My preference is to take the conversation as far as one can go without getting into the product. So somebody says, hey, I'm really interested in, and fill in the blank. I used to just dive in the pool at that point and say, hey, that's great. When I first started doing this, but I realized half of those deals went nowhere. So my first response, if somebody comes out and says, I'm really, really interested in, again, fill in the blanks, my first response is why. It's a friendly why. I'm not challenging them, but the question is why. And then just shut up and listen, because ideally they will tell you at that point. If they don't tell you, you are up to a bad start with somebody that may not be ideal. So
You have
ideally,
those people out there, Frank, that are just they're there because their boss told them to, or they've got to check a certain number of boxes a year, right? So we used to say more than anything, disqualify like heck right at the beginning.
yeah. And that's a good point, Dan. You and I have worked together on many projects, and listen, if everybody's qualified, then you're not qualifying anybody. The only way you know if you're qualifying is by disqualifying people. And for those senior reps that are listening now, or at some point they'll probably roll their eyes and say, hey, Frank, that's 101. I continue to see it, even with guys that have been around for a long time. So I would start with questions. I would start playing the role I prefer to play early on is one of consultant, and asking good questions, and probing and finding out. You're doing yourself a favor, and you're doing that prospective customer a favor, because then you have context. What is this about? Who are they? Why are they here? Are they looking at anything else? What is the driver? What is the process? What is their timing? What's going on, right? How do they judge this? Who else is in the picture? Just all those things and a dozen more. If you have a really, really good conversation along those lines, which could take up the entire first call, the first meeting, you are certain to have a much better session the second time.
I think it drives credibility too, right, Frank? Yeah, there's so many people out there that start selling without ever knowing anything about their customers. And I think one of the challenges in the space is that people are a little disenfranchised based on just all the software that's out there. This concept that the software will solve all problems, right? And so there's just something about being genuine and establishing that credibility, right?
Absolutely. Speaking of credibility, Dan, look at those books. You see all those books? See those books behind me?
Yeah. Are they real?
I don't know. I've never opened any one of them. But it's just a conference room, Dan. But seriously, yes, you have to. My recommendation is start with questions, because you know what happens if you start with answers and you show up and throw up and you leave with a product. You're going to be 2 or 3 calls or 2 or 3 months into this, and suddenly you realize what you don't know, and then you're going to attempt to backpedal, and it's just really awkward and tough at that point to say, hey, I really meant to ask you. You're just going to look like a knucklehead at that point. Okay, keeping track of the time, Dan. The number three on my list as to most common reasons why sales teams lose deals is they're confusing automation-led deals with automation-fueled deals. Not all deals, this is the world according to me, not all deals are alike. There's automation-led deals, there's automation-fueled deals. Automation-led deals is, hey, I'm the head of automation, or our CFO asked us to look into automation, or I just came back from an automation conference, or I just made an automation white paper, and you guys have automation, and we want to see what you have. And it's automation palooza, and that's one thing. It's different than somebody saying, hey, we have this challenge. We have 200 positions that we can't fill in a call center, and we hear you guys may have something, and we need to fill these positions in the call center because it's creating a problem for us as far as customer satisfaction. We're stressing out the people in the call center. We're losing customers. In the latter scenario, you may not hear the word automation at all. In the former scenario, you will hear the automation in every other sentence. Now, step number one is those two are 2 different deals. And one footnote I would make there, knowing Dan will come back to that on another call, is that why do you need to know? Because there's 2 different drivers. The messaging for each should be different. The people involved will likely be different. The business case, just the nature of the business case, the framing of it will be different. And I would go as far as saying is maybe even education might be different. If you're talking to people that are doing automation all day long, so It's less about education in that sense. It's probably more about differentiation. So if you go, oh, let me tell you about automation, they say, hey, buddy, I know more about automation than you. I just need to know why I should be talking to you. That's a different play. It's differentiation. Either way, it's fine. As opposed to if you're speaking to, again, the head of a division and they need digital staff fog. I wouldn't go automation, automation, automation. Let's see a demo. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Everybody slow down. Let's find out what's going on here. Play business consultant. It's typically a business problem that's typically looking for a business solution. So that is number 3.
Yeah, that reminds me. That reminds me, Frank, and you know this story. A number of years ago, we had one of our advisory boards for content, events, and things, and we're talking about different emerging tech, and we're going around the room, and maybe 30, 40 minutes into the call, I asked the executive at a large investment bank that we know, and I asked him what his opinion was, and he said, Dan, he goes, let me put it this way. I don't care if it's RPA, AI, or 8 guys in a garage somewhere. If it can deliver me this business outcome, sign me up, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I remember that. And in that case, so now you know that it's business driven, right? And they really want to. Your solution needs to be in that language. They're less concerned about the shiny stuff. Now, granted, at some point early on, you will be directed to the CTO or automation COE or somebody there. And of course, got to make that team happy. We have to pass muster there. They have to bless it. So, and you have to respect that team because they're going to need to install it, integrate it, customize it, whatever they need to do, maintain it. So they're as important as anyone else. But the question is, what's driving the dialogue? And certainly in that case. Okay, number 4. The challenge, let me start with the challenge. The challenge is people that think business case on third base. I think business case from hello forward. I want to call, everybody says hello, and I'm probing, I'm looking to get a sense as to kind of what the challenges are, getting a sense of the environment, the players, and then kind of why are we all here. I will tell you, if somebody says, and I know, again, the advisors on this call, that's here, this would roll their eyes this time. But if they say we're looking to reduce cost, I'm delighted from the standpoint of I'm already mapping out the business case in my mind. Okay, so they have whatever 500 employees. They have this gap. They're doing this. This is their cost, fixed cost, variable cost. This is the opportunity cost. It's a real cost. We can come in. We can reduce 20% here. We can. I'm literally live and dynamically mapping out the business plan, right, which I may serve up in 4 months, but I'm doing it now. If they say enhance productivity, I'm double clicking on that right away. If they say increase user experience, I'm double clicking on that right away to understand what they mean. Because here's the trap: if they use more qualitative terms early on, I'm going to ask them, because I've already gone into the future, and I saw how I got booted in the butt at the end with my business case. So then I go back into the present and I say, help me understand how you or we justify that in the business case. How do we quantify and justify that? And if they say, oh, fine, we do it all the time and we'll work with you, fine. If they say, I don't know, then you're gonna be in trouble. So if you can't at that early stage begin to frame the payoff and the ROI in a quantitative way, then it's less qualified. And you're gonna happily march to a point where you will be extremely disappointed, because you're gonna say, here's what this thing is. It's $250,000. They're gonna say, oh, how are we going to justify that? And you'll say, hey, user experience. And they'll say, Dan, we have no way of, the CFO and the procurement guys aren't going to believe that. We can't quantify it. Oh, my goodness. Well, don't let that happen. You heard it here first. That's number 4. Number 5 has to do with just really kind of mapping out the deal in the following way. Here's how I do it. I say all deals, and I'm talking about the most sophisticated, tech-centric deals, or really any business deals. The bulk of my background, as you know, is in kind of emerging tech and automation deals, and certainly more recently Web3 related. But for the purposes of this call, the only way you win a deal is if you check these three boxes and think of high school subjects: science, math, politics. Science is the product, is the tech, right? Is there alignment with what the product can do and what they're looking for? And there may not be, right? There may be issues there for a whole bunch of reasons. If there's not, you go away and you say thanks, because you never know what tomorrow may bring. There may be a better match in 6 months, or that person ends up with another company and they say, hey, that Dan Goodstein's an awesome guy, and they reconnect. But let's assume they love the tech. They love the tech. They love the tech. You are not done. You are barely there. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Don't be a yellow belt. So now you say, okay, let's get to the math. The math is, okay, how are we going to justify this? So ideally, if you had the call that I'm recommending from the beginning, how are we going to justify this, right? Here you are now in the justification zone. And ideally, you or people on your team have a good sense of how to craft a business case. Maybe you have a calculator. Maybe you have a lot of experience, and then you craft a defendable and viable and credible business case. I would say a good chunk of the deals die at science. A bigger chunk die at the math phase. So now, but let's say best case scenario, they love the science, meaning the product, the tech. They love the math, meaning the business case. And here you are saying, oh my gosh, look at this. We're going to give you all the goodies you look for, and we're self-financing. This is a no-brainer. We are making you an offer you cannot refuse. Still a good portion of those deals die. Why? Politics, last but not least. So if you are surprised at that point and you don't have a political heat map, shame on you. You know,
Yep.
you got to get a sense of who's winning, who's losing here. And think of the ramifications. Is everybody going to support this? If you don't know who your deal killer is until your deal is killed, well, then nothing you could do at that point. You could scramble all you want. So from the beginning, know that it's about science and math and politics. And 2 out of 3, you still lose. Has to be 3 out of 3. So that's kind of another reason why a lot of people lose, because I would say the majority of sales teams out there focus purely on the science. They like the product. I don't know what happened. A smaller portion of, I would say, more experienced, maybe more sophisticated folks out there do science and math. But there's a very small portion out there that also include the politics. And you want to keep that in mind, again, from hello forward, as to what's the body language on that damn Zoom call, of all these too many Zoom calls we're having, and who's calling you back, who's interested, who's engaged. And don't be embarrassed. Again, this is, advanced sales people are not uncomfortable with this, but many still are, which is, don't be uncomfortable asking questions. Why do you want to do this? And then you get somebody one-on-one to say, how do you feel about this? Is this good for you aside from the rest of the team? How does this impact your department? How does this impact your job? Have you thought about how this impacts your career? And you're going to tell by the answer or the non-answer what's going on. You don't lose with those conversations. You will find out one way or the other. So why avoid the surprise at the end to know where everybody is? Yeah. So does that make sense, Dan?
Yeah, and I usually tell people, it's the logical sale and the emotional sale, but you're right. It's more complex than that, right? I mean, most of these deals are, multi-siloed, large, complicated enterprises. You're not just selling to one person, right?
Well, not only yes, and listen, as much as all of us in this space for years kind of brag about disruptive technology, listen, I don't like disruptive. I don't want to disrupt people. But where it is disruptive, you have to think it through. How are we going to get this through? Because people will reject it. There's a deal killer in every room. The question is, how long does it take for you to find that? And again, not everybody's going to be for it. Does it? Many have been on this call. At the end, they present a great business case. It looks like it's a no-brainer. and the person says, well, the guys in the so-and-so department think this isn't the right time, right? Just you get all that sinking feeling in your gut. We've all been on those calls.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh my God, what did I not ask? Or what did I do? Or they're saying, you know what, the so-and-so team doesn't believe the business case, or we're not ready. It's a little bit aggressive for us. And, we tried something a little while back. It didn't work. What the heck, man? We're at the altar now.
Yep.
You going to tell me this now? So that's it. So Dan, you maybe promised to deliver 5, but I do have a 6th, Dan. I don't know. I do have a 6th. It's a bonus one, Dan. You ready?
Bonus credit, extra credit.
Yes. So here's what I have. I just thought of this a couple hours ago. I thought I'd share with you. So this is like a point of contention for many people, and depending on the deal, I could be on either side of the debate, and that is to PC or not to PC. I'm sorry, to POC or not to POC. Okay, POC, pilot, proof of value, call it what you wish. But and I've done some roundtables on this myself, hoping to get consensus from my colleagues out there.
Yeah,
and there is no consensus. You might have even been on that call a while back, Dan. So I guess my point though is think of what's, listen, you could either think of what's best for you as a deal person, say, oh, what's going to help me get my deal, or you could think of what's best for the customer to help them experience the product, or you think about what's best for everybody. But I would think from the early stages, get a sense of how the customer typically does this. I find more often than not, they're going to want to see it, and they're going to want to, as they say, get their hands on it. That's the most common expression I hear. Almost every deal, they want to get their hands on it. So I think it's tough to avoid some sort of hey, let's get our hands on it. However, you can shape it. You can lead the dance, not just for your selfish sake, but for everyone's sake. Because not only does it take time and resources and bandwidth from your team, it takes it from their team. And everybody there has a day job. So the more you could determine what's the optimal approach, meaning the least amount of time, least amount of cycles on everybody's part, that could drive home the point. By the way, what is the point? Meaning, what do we want to prove here? Get that spelled out in writing early on. Could be in some sort of a document. It could be an email, could be in a PowerPoint, but make sure they see that and sign it off. Meaning, hey, listen, in 2 months or 2 weeks or 2 days, here's what we're going to prove. We're going to prove this, this, this. Yeah. We're nodding the head. Yeah. That's it. As opposed to, well, I clicked some button. What happened? Right. So the to POC or not to POC is the question. And if you do, which you likely will, then be very proactive, spell it out, get everybody around the table to nod their head. Everybody, not just the person you're talking to, they're most likely to say yes. You could basically say, remind me again, or remind them and say, listen, on our first phone call 3 weeks ago, you said there's going to be Fred and Susie and Felipe on the thing. So could we share this document with them?
Right.
So everybody looks at it, all the stakeholders, and they get on it. And at that point, you're more likely, because I could also tell you, and many that are listening, I think would agree, you're on the back end of some sort of a pilot, and you're like, oh man, we killed it. And they're like, well, I'm not sure. What the heck? My goodness. Right. So that's not fun. I'm stopping there, Dan. I'm giving you gold. I'm giving you gold here, Dan.
It's good advice. We're going to have to unpack all these on separate sessions, but this is good conversation. And before we jump, couple shout outs. Ronit, thanks for joining in. He says hello, Frank. Jesse, thanks for joining. Talani, couple friends of the Institute here. But
cool.
No, good. And a reminder, everybody, right? We're here to help. Right? As much as we like to talk to ourselves, we're here to help. We're fortunate to spend about half our time speaking to clients about what they're working on, what their challenges are, and the other half our time speaking to providers to kind of help them figure out how to get to market and get in front of these folks. So, we're 130,000 members now globally, focused all around RPA, intelligent automation, and AI. So we have a variety of marketing subscriptions, sales, lead generation subscriptions, but we're also happy to just give advice and have conversations like this. So we will dive deeper later in the next coming weeks and go through these in a little bit more detail. Yes, Frank?
Yes. Listen, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, Dan. So do you think we did okay here? I'll be back if I'm invited.
Maybe we'll take a poll and we'll see.
Oh gosh.
Frank,
Cool.
thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, and great having this conversation, Dan. Looking forward to part 2.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.